So, over the weekend, Koei Tecmo held a network test for the upcoming Dead or Alive 6, which is very exciting. Dead or Alive 6 is one of my most anticipated games of 2019, and I couldn't resist making a video about it. As a network test, it was incredibly limited, as you might expect, and only allowed people to fight in online matches against random players. You couldn't even fight against a buddy unless you got really lucky with the matchmaking system. And there were only a tiny few characters to boot. Even at the TGS demo that I was at last year, there were more characters to choose between. This was purely done by Koei Tecmo, obviously, to test, to see how the network infrastructure worked, how the online play was like, and then spend the next couple of weeks until the game releases on March 1 to refine it further. So it was a very limited demo, but again, my most anticipated game of 2019, and this was going to be enough. This is all I get to play until the game releases, I guess. Though it didn't have any of my favourite characters, and though I couldn't play in the single player or local multiplayer, which is the way I prefer to play fighting games, I couldn't resist giving it a whirl anyway. What you'll notice from the outset is that the connection isn't perfect. The online connection isn't perfect. In fact, in all the matches I played, the connection quality was listed as poor. I want to say up front that as an Australian, I kind of expected that. The servers that we were connecting to from Australia were probably in Europe, the US or Japan. And the people closer to the physical servers were probably having a better time of that connection. And, it's a downside to living in Australia and playing games in Australia, I guess. It's not to be unexpected, and I just wanted to say that because I think a lot of people that were playing the network test probably had a better, smoother experience than I did. So don't let this video let you down. This video is from the perspective of an Aussie. That being said, while the occasional lag made it hard to time counters and the like, which is how I generally prefer to play my fighting games, especially Dead or Alive, I still found the experience to be smooth enough to be enjoyable. This is one good-looking game for a start, and that's always enjoyable in itself. And Koei's actually improved the way that the characters play subtly so that they're interesting all over again, even to people who spend a lot of time playing Dead or Alive 5. I found Kasumi, for example, more enjoyable in this network test than I did in Dead or Alive 5. There's a better sense of motion to her, which is subtle, but it means that she feels both more weighty and more physical in a positive way, and also more responsive and intuitive, so that her actions seem to mesh up well with, the way that you're pressing buttons. The combo system seems to be more fluid, and just generally it's more enjoyable. I'm looking forward to seeing how, my favourite characters actually have come out from the adjustments that they've made for this new game. I didn't play Kasumi a great deal in Dead or Alive 5, but I did find her immediately more enjoyable this time around. As you can see, I turned the blood and bruising right off. I have absolutely no interest in that feature, as it's been added to Dead or Alive 6. It directly conflicts with the light, sexy tone that has always attracted me to the series. I don't have an issue with blood and violence. I really like Mortal Kombat, and I'm really looking forward to Mortal Kombat 11, which is certainly over the top in that regard. But I do think it was a mistake for the developers to make it a feature of Dead or Alive 6 in itself at all. That being said, if you turn the blood off, it doesn't affect the gameplay in any way. And if you do turn the blood off, the destructible costumes still stay on. So if one of your characters gets hit by a special attack, their clothing will rip off a little bit. And I think that is a great touch and something that certainly is to the spirit of Dead or Alive. And it was added as something with regards to some of the DLC costumes towards the end of Dead or Alive 5 as well. So it's good to see that they've continued on with that particular tradition. As for the all-important costumes, while we're talking about them, much of the game's sexiness kind of came from those costumes, the swimsuits and the various fetish uniforms and all that kind of stuff. The network test was fairly limited in terms of what costumes you could play with, which was unsurprising. We've already seen video of plenty of characters having their original costumes, including Kasumi's, which is in itself, quite revealing, it must be said, as well as other characters have, super short skirts and those kinds of costumes, and all the physics that entails. So there's still plenty of that in the game, obviously, even though it wasn't in the network test. We've not seen any swimsuits yet, as far as I've seen, at least from the videos or the network test. But it's a safe bet to assume that those will come in as DLC at a later date as well. I know there's been a lot of debate about whether Dead or Alive 6 is toning down the sex appeal, including for me. I've questioned it in the past. I've got to say I like where things are at. It's more subtle perhaps, but it is there, and the way that the costumes are destroyed, to the intro and exit animations, all of it kind of comes together to make the game still feel like it's fundamentally Dead or Alive, with everything that entails. Like I said, it is, it's not as overt as perhaps in games past, although, again, once DLC costumes come, we might see more of that overt sexuality. But it's still got plenty of that Dead or Alive quality to it anyway, even in this state. And I think that a lot of people that were concerned about that stuff, not everybody, because some people want certain things with regards to the boob physics in particular, and those are not quite the same this time around. Those people are probably going to be disappointed. But for most people, I think they're going to come away from their time with Dead or Alive 6 still thinking that this is a very Dead or Alive game, more subtle perhaps, but still sexy enough, and still all of that kind of light-hearted tone will still be there. So I think most people who were perhaps a little bit concerned about this game going in, I think the more and more we see of it, the more and more reason we have to be excited about what it's offering, and it is definitely one of my most anticipated games of 2019. I can't wait till March 1 when we will actually get the chance to play the full thing.